Hello, everybody. Welcome
Hello.
to the November 2020 general meeting for the Council of Fort Lauderdale Civic Associations. My name is Colleen Lockwood. We're going to call to order at 6:30 p.m. And First Vice President Mary Peliquin will conduct the roll call for board members and member associations.
Excuse me. Once again, for those of you that just joined, if you could put your name and your association in the chat box, that certainly helps me. I actually pretty much know everybody, but the chat box does get recorded. And also I can go back and look at it. So I do appreciate that. I'll go ahead with the roll call for the board members. Kathy Stubbs. I know you're there. I saw you.
He's here.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Doing okay out there? Are you above water?
Oh, barely.
Okay. Okay. Christina Curry.
Present.
Colleen.
Here.
Dennis Ulmer.
Here.
Jim Concannon.
I am here.
Ellie.
Here.
Lewis.
I am here.
Marilyn. I'm sorry I'm not saying your last names. I apologize for that. Marilyn, my man. I know you're here, Marilyn.
He's muted.
Okay.
I'm unmuted. I'm here.
Okay. I'm gonna miss these Zoom meetings someday. Melinda.
Here.
And Michael is excused. And myself, Mary Peliquin, I am here. Okay, so we have all the board members except for the one excused board member. Haven't quite gone through. I think we are close to a quorum, if not quite there. So give me a minute and I'll let you know, Colleen.
And the rest of the neighborhood leaders, if you could put your name and your neighborhood association in the chat box, that'd be great.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, so we're going to go ahead into the agenda for tonight. We have a few general membership updates, and then we're limiting guests this month to our favorite two, our city manager and Dr. JJ, and then our famous neighborhood round robins will renew again this month. We set expectations high last month with the folks that talked about their neighborhoods, and then go back to regular business of the council at the end. General updates for this month, congratulations to our mayor and vice mayor on their re-election. And just broadly speaking, I think it's fair to say I think it's a fact to say that more voters turned out, regardless of who you voted for and what partisanship you feel for, there were more voters this election than ever in the history of our country. So that's pretty cool. And speaking of elections, the council board positions are all open for anyone interested in running for them, right? So there are several board positions. We're announcing it this month. The actual official board position starts March 1st and runs for 2 years. But if you are interested in participating and being more engaged in the board, and you are an eligible resident, which means that you're an alternate or a rep for an officially recognized neighborhood association, please consider running for the board. Lastly, the present topic of the day is flooding. And we have with us tonight, obviously, our city manager that's going to address the actions that the city is taking. And a lot of that is ongoing and infrastructure improvements underway with stormwater, et cetera. But I am delighted to introduce and allow 2 to 3 minutes for a gentleman from Brazaga. Brazaga is a local agency that does work in climate resiliency, but they also are very active at the local, state, and federal level on the regulatory aspects of what is relevant for this. And I think the purpose of Michael Antonelli, who's a principal and co-founder, speaking is, Chris is going to talk about what the city is doing, we as residents also have options. And Brazago posted an article that we shared out last couple weeks about the steps that we can take as residents, what's in our control to handle. Because I know a lot of us are feeling the pain with this particular flooding. But with that, I've got Michael's bio up here. I'm not going to read it, but I'm going to give Michael the floor for a couple minutes before we go to our presenters for the evening. So Michael, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate your time. If you could give us a few minutes on the harsh reality of our world where we live, and then steps that residents can take, and any other advice you want to provide.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Colleen. And thank you everyone for inviting me today. It couldn't be a more timely topic, I think, given everything that we've experienced over the last couple of days. I'm actually out here in Weston, where we've gotten over 15 inches of rain, and the entire street in front of my house is flooded. I've been working from home the last couple of days just because I can't get out of the neighborhood. But I wanted to just talk briefly about this, this blog post that we had shared and circulated around, talking about reducing your own personal risk from rainstorms and king tides. I think it is worth reminding everybody that we live in South Florida, and South Florida historically is, Everglades and swamp and all of that. So when we get rain events, the kind that we've just had, we shouldn't really be surprised when flooding occurs on roadways. I've seen a lot of chatter among different community groups and other folks about, about all the standing water and why we're not able to get rid of it quickly enough. And the reality is that we have probably the most complex flood control system in the world here in South Florida. This huge network of canals and pumps to discharge water that falls within our community, but it's all dependent on the sea level when they can open those pumps and when they can open those gates and how much they can pump out at a time. So that said, we're all really dependent on that critical infrastructure that's managed at the governmental level. Aside from that, there are a few things that homeowners can start to do in order to better protect themselves against flooding. Obviously, there's not really much you're going to be able to do to prevent floods in the streets and and coming up onto your lawns if there's that much water. But there are different mitigation measures that can be taken. Things like wet, here's a good list. Just some things to check before a storm to make sure that everything's working the way it's supposed to be, and that you have all of the policies and things in place to make sure that you're not in a bad position once a flood or a storm event does hit. Things like, I don't have to read them off one by one, but you guys can all take a look at your leisure. One of the things that is not mentioned here is the idea of actual improvements to structures. Things like wet flood proofing or dry flood proofing, which are improvements made to the structure itself in the case when water may come up that high. That tends to happen for the much lower lying homes and properties. I would say the biggest thing that you all can do as community leaders is bulleted here, number 7. Obviously, the city of Fort Lauderdale is already underway with a lot of different great initiatives that Chris is going to talk about in a few moments. But I would advocate on the level of the South Florida Water Management District, get your neighborhoods behind you, get all the people in your communities behind you, and really push for this. There's, I want to say, close to $70 million worth of improvements that are needed. There are a number of structures that are close to failure depending on how high the tide levels go. So, it's really just a matter of being aware of the issues, making sure that you understand what contributes to the flooding and what kinds of mitigation measures are available, and really just advocating, because this is a community-wide regional issue that's not going to be solved by any one person alone. So that's all I've got for you guys today. Stay dry out there. Don't drive in flooded roads. That's I've seen it too many times. Too many cars stalled out. Just be careful.
Thank you, Michael. And I think, one of the just basic questions is this here to stay? I mean, flooding will continue and it will get worse. Are the infrastructure improvements underway going to help mitigate enough of that? I mean, I know we can't get rid of rain. I know we can't eliminate flooding entirely, but it's the worst ever that many of us have ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely going to be more rain events like this in the future. The baseline water levels that, are going to be a little bit higher in the future as sea level continues to rise. So these kinds of events are going to become a little bit more commonplace. It's just a matter of being able to develop responsibly and find opportunities, find ways to move water the way that it needs to be moved in order to maintain a standard of living. There's when we design infrastructure systems, they're designed for a specific service, level of service, which means that under certain conditions we expect it to perform so that there's no disruptions. But once we exceed those conditions, there are some sacrifices that have to be made. Standing water in the roadway is a sacrifice that has to be made in order to address this kind of volume of water without flooding out, properties and structures and really causing significant property damage. So, as those different, as the criteria changes for what we need to prepare for, so too will the infrastructure investments. But it's a balancing act between the cost of those investments and the likelihood of them occurring, and how much we expect it to affect us.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. So tough news for the community, and really appreciate you being here tonight. And I think hats off to all the efforts underway at the city level, at the county level. I know there's several regional efforts underway as well. So really appreciate you and your support and guidance tonight. Thank you very, very much.
It's a pleasure. And if anybody has any questions or needs, specific information or wants to talk about your own specific neighborhood or property, we're here as a resource, a local resource. We're a local company, and we're happy to help in any way that we can. You can just reach us. My name, michael@brazaga.com. It's a very easy way to reach me. And we're here. We're around. We're not going anywhere.
Thank you, Michael. And Alec also offered that as well. So we'll put phone numbers and emails in our next email blast. So folks, and we'll include it on the website too, if folks want advice or guidance. That's terrific. Thank you very much.
Great. All right. Take care, everybody. Stay dry.
Thank you. Okay, so I don't see Chris here yet. So we are going to go to our second speaker on the heels of the 90% effective vaccine announcement last night or yesterday. What a fantastic time to be hearing from our local Dr. Fauci, our beloved Dr. J.J. Rader. So Dr. Rader, I'm going to turn it over to you to provide updates on all things COVID, and in particular, the vaccine and all the questions that we sent you ahead of time. We will post them in the chat if you don't have them handy. With that, I'll hand the floor to you.
Hi, thank you very much. Once again, it's an honor and a privilege to be addressing this group. So first things first. So I'm sure everybody's so excited about that Pfizer study that released preliminary information this last few days. I'm cautiously optimistic about what this means, but the upfront word is cautiously. Here's why. The study enrolled, now the full data is not available yet on that study. Pfizer has not released it, and they say this is a preliminary data set that they just released. the information I was able to gather is that in the study, they enrolled around 43,500 patients. Of those, 94 only contracted COVID-19, 94. So for me to derive any significant data out of 94 people, that is very much a stretch. Knowing that most people, if they contract COVID, will be doing okay unless they have significant comorbidities. So 94 people, you say a 3% mortality rate, you know, you may not have seen the worst in this particular study. Now, what is encouraging are the statements that were made by Pfizer, a 90% efficacy rate, 7 days after the second dose of the vaccine is administered. So the way this particular vaccine is going to work is people get one dose the first day, 3 weeks later, they get a second dose of the vaccine, and 1 week after that second dose, they allege that patients have a 90% efficacy rate, protection rate from this vaccine. Now that is extremely encouraging if this holds true. Put this into perspective, our flu vaccine is 40 to 60% effective depending on the year. So this will be outdoing our flu vaccination by a landslide. Now, some concerns. Pfizer has already announced that under the best of circumstances, they will only have 50 million doses of the vaccine available in 2020. Realizing that patients need 2 doses, that really means 25 million people worldwide may actually get this vaccine in 2020. By 2021, they're expecting that they would be able to manufacture 1.3 billion doses of this vaccine. So that's much more encouraging, assuming that the vaccine is indeed 90% effective as what was released by Pfizer. The other part of the information that is encouraging is Moderna released that they may have some data available for us within the next month. We know that GlaxoSmithKline has developed a vaccine. The Russians are developing a vaccine, whatever that's worth. There are vaccines coming out of Israel. There are vaccines coming out of multiple areas. So there is reason to be encouraged. I always like to keep a healthy level of skepticism. So here's my skepticism right now. Number one, study data is not yet available for review. So people like me have to take Pfizer's word because we can't review the data yet. Number two, how long will immunity last after the vaccine? Is it going to be a long-term immunity lasting many months or many years, like you would see with vaccine for herpes? Or is it more going to be an influenza-like immunity that lasts about 6 months? Since it's an RNA virus, since we know that innate immunity for other coronaviruses usually lasts about 6 months, there is good reason to suspect that people may require additional immunization after 6 months. I don't know, pure speculation. Next issue, what are the long-term side effects of this vaccine? Is there any delayed side effect? Well, we won't know that because the vaccine administration only started a few months ago. So we don't know if people are going to grow a third eye, you know, in 2 years from now. We just don't know. Are people going to develop polio-like syndromes, transverse myelitis, issues like that? We just don't know. What you need to remember is that a usual vaccine takes about 10 years to develop. This was developed in 12 months or less, actually less than that. So, you know, what are the long-term side effects? Unknown. Next issue. For those of you that have kept appraised of what's happening with COVID, there is a new mutation of the virus that came out of Denmark that has grown into minks. It's no longer just in Denmark, it has been found in other countries. What does this mean to the vaccine? Is this mutation sufficient to make the vaccine ineffective? We don't know that, hasn't been looked at. So obviously there is concern there. But once again, this is a first piece or one of the first pieces of very encouraging information regarding something that may lead to normalcy. But once again, take this with a healthy grain of salt. Next issue that people are going to probably ask, because this is a very smart crowd, what about Eli Lilly? Eli Lilly had a monoclonal antibody that was just approved by the FDA under emergency use authorization. This is an antibody that was designed to be directed against a protein spike on the virus. And once again, this should become clinically available since the FDA granted it emergency use authorization. But let's put that a little bit into perspective. I like perspective. The study, 2 studies, small studies, 465 outpatients, that's it, were put in 4 different groups. One group got 700 milligrams, one group got 2,800 milligrams, and a third group got 7,000 milligrams, and 156 patients got placebo. So about 310 patients got treatment, 156 patients got placebo. This is kind of normal distribution. Two-thirds into a treatment arm, 1/3 into placebo. Primary endpoint for that study was how quickly are people going to clear the virus? Well, guess what? People who got treatment or placebo, for the majority of them, cleared the virus by 11 days. Well, that's kind of what we already know, that most people will clear the virus by 11 days, and there was no significant difference there. What was different is the following. Secondary endpoint. At 28 days, 3% of the people getting that monoclonal antibody from Eli Lilly ended up admitted to the hospital versus 10% of patients that are in the placebo arm. So there was a 7% reduction, absolute risk reduction in admission to the hospital. Now, that is something interesting, something that may provide us hope, because to me, anything that provides us hope is helpful, as long as that hope is justified. Next issues, remdesivir. The WHO, the World Health Organization, released the largest study to date looking at remdesivir. No survival benefits. The p-value was 0.07. That does not confer statistical significant benefit for survival. Convalescent plasma. Mayo Clinic enrolled over 150,000 people to date. Now they're administering a second dose of the convalescent plasma. Guess why? Because they didn't get to the end they wanted with 1 dose. Even now, no studies are showing a survival benefit for convalescent plasma either. That is not encouraging. The recovery trial, which people are familiar with, the dexamethasone trial that came out of Oxford, that is very encouraging data. People that were not on a ventilator, their risk of mortality went from 26.2% to 23.3%, which is a 2.9% absolute reduction in mortality. If you look at people on invasive mechanical ventilation, meaning people that are sicker, their mortality went from 41.4% to 29.3%, which is a 12.1% absolute risk reduction in mortality. So that is real data. That's something you can also hang your hat on. So between the dexamethasone, between the vaccines, between the monoclonal antibodies, between the ivermectin that my wife and I pioneered, I think, you know, we're getting a little bit better and a little bit smarter at treating this disease. So there is hope, and I think that hope will come from many, many different avenues. So I know that other questions are going to be asked. So hold on, let me move this out of the way so I can share this with you guys, because people may ask questions. So this is the information regarding, regarding the vaccine. This is the best data that has come out to date. As far as the monoclonal antibody that I spoke about, this is from data from the FDA that has come out. So if people want to look at that, that is quite helpful. When we speak about dexamethasone, I like sharing the data because people will always ask for it. Here you have the data about the dexamethasone study. Now, what is happening in Broward County, more specifically? So in Florida, In the last 24 hours, there have been a new 3,900 cases. So that's a far cry of the 10,000 plus cases we used to have. Death, 58 people died in the last 24 hours. When it comes to Broward County, there have been 444 new cases in the last 24 hours with 11 new deaths. It is a little bit worse from what we had before, but nowhere near as bad as what we had some time ago. That is definitely encouraging. Now, for people that like to look at data and see what is happening worldwide, this is a great place to obtain that data. This is from, did I send it through? Or yeah, this is from Johns Hopkins, where they actually break down mortality based on percent of people that test positive, but also mortality based on population. Now, case fatality rate, meaning the number of people die from the people that are positive, that data can be debated. Why? If you test more, that case fatality rate will go down because you're going to test presumably a lot of patients who don't have disease. Now, the death per 100,000, the population doesn't change until people die, then the population changes. But if you look at, for example, if you go to that site, you look at Belgium, they have 115 people that die per 100,000 population. If you look at the United States, it's at 72.8 people per 100,000 population. You look at some other countries that currently are in deep doo-doo, like Italy, it's only at 69 per 100,000. If you look at France, where are you hiding, France? They're on there also. They are also somewhere similar. Here they are, 61.2. So they're very similar to what you see in the US. Yet I spoke to some colleagues in France on Friday, and they say in Paris right now, the ICUs are full. The overflow ICUs are full, and people are not dying in the hallways. The same thing is happening in Milan. So we see that happening in Europe. It's happening in some part in some of the northern states in the United States. We are still blessed right now in Florida. I hope and pray that it stays that way, but if statistics has anything to do with it, we're just living on borrowed time right now, because I think it's eventually going to hit us. What other questions were there?
There was a question about the Holiday Park testing site that might have been more for Chris than you. Dennis had a question about the vaccine, which you've addressed. Dennis, there was another question. Was it the Holiday Park test site question? Was that it? And Dr. Getz looks like he has a question or two.
So who had a question?
Dr. Getz is asking about the conflict between the different dashboard data.
Well, everything has to do a little bit about how the data is collected. There might be delays in some data being collected. So it is not uncommon to see small differences between different dashboards. If there are huge differences between dashboards, that's obviously more concerning. It's similar to what you would see during election night, where some broadcasts would have one candidate up and one candidate down, and then the other broadcast would be slightly different. So it really depends on where they're getting their data. But overall, you should see a very similar trend, even if the numbers are minimally different. It is just how the data is being obtained and delay between adding the data, the new data, to the existing tallies.
And the validity of herd immunity, the complications of different mutations of the virus, how that affects herd immunity. Is herd immunity a thing? Is it gonna, is that the thing that's gonna help us?
I think I discussed that at one of the prior meetings already. There was a non-clinical trial in a jail system, I believe it was California, where they just allowed the inmates and the wardens to do whatever they were normally doing. What ended up happening is there were a large number of the inmates that actually died of COVID-19, much larger than California at large. If they extrapolated the number of people that died versus the number of inmates, towards the total population in the United States, you would have had millions of people dead. So I think going down that path of herd immunity that way would be incredibly painful, and I don't think anybody would like to see that. Now, a combination between vaccination, a combination of different medical treatments, a combination of people keeping their wits, a combination of government, once the numbers start dropping, doing contact tracing, I think that is key. For example, if we had 400 new cases in Broward County of COVID-19, it's not unreasonable to say, you know what, we could have a task force in place to do contact tracing on those 400 and some people, and then identify who they exposed and then put these people into quarantine and try to bring the numbers down. The time to do contact tracing is now, as the numbers are down. As I said, you know, where are we here? For Florida, we had 3,924 new cases. It is not unreasonable to say that we could initiate some level of contact tracing, and that would bring the numbers down further. I mean, that's essentially what they did in Australia. They had no cases, then all of a sudden they had a spike again. Australia figured out what happened. There is a person that came to the funeral of a parent. They came from England to Australia for the funeral of one of their parents. They were placed in quarantine at a hotel like is customarily done in Australia. Somehow, one of the security guards at that hotel allowed that person to leave to do some grocery shopping. They infected more people. They infected 400 and some people. Another 40 people died. But guess what? The numbers are now back down to single digit because they were able to do contact tracing. They identified what happened, and that can be done. Contact tracing can be done when the numbers are low. As the numbers start increasing, doing contact tracing will become nearly impossible because you need an army of people. Not impossible, but much harder to do. But a combination between smart isolation, contact tracing, wearing masks, physical distancing, immunizations once they're proven safe and effective, treatment modalities, seeking out medical attention as early as possible because we know that treatments work better if they're administered earlier. So all these things are really going to be important. Herd immunity, I'm afraid that it's going to be a lot of pain.
Wonderful. Dr. JJ, just so wonderful. Really appreciate it. And just for everyone's benefit, Dr. Rader and City Manager Lagerbloom have agreed to be regular featured presenters for the next 3 to 4 months at our council meeting. So we continue to be very appreciative and grateful for your wonderful insights and information. And we'll do our best to stay safe and push for contact tracing. That sounds like a good plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So with that, we are going to go back to our city manager who has now joined us. And Chris we had a theme this month that Chris would obviously be providing updates from the city, but also talking about the importance of community. He has his own story to tell. But I do think that flooding is going to be part of his conversation as well. So without further ado, Chris, I'll turn things over to you.
Great. So good evening, everybody. Thank you for, again, the opportunity to join the group. I think I figured out what happened. And I think when this meeting was in the eighth floor conference room, for whatever reason, it shows up on my calendar at 7 o'clock. So I really do know how to tell time as your manager. And I had this tie on at 6:30 and would have come live then too, if I had known that we were starting at 6:30. So I apologize that I ran a little bit late to the meeting. I asked, and we'll see if she gets in, I asked our stormwater manager to join us tonight to talk a little bit about what our stormwater system is and how the stormwater system works and why we're seeing a little bit about what we're seeing. But let's go back and let's take us back to talk about this flooding and what started it. So tropical storm Eta hit Nicaragua as a Category 4 hurricane, did a little dance to the right, decided to go up north through Cuba and then take a hard left, and now is making some type of a pattern either up into the Gulf or back into the panhandle of Florida. When it was with us, we had sustained winds at 40 to 45, maybe even 50 miles an hour at one point. We were on what is known as the dirty side of the storm, meaning the winds were out of the east, and we had a lot of push towards our beach. As that storm passed through the Florida Straits and got into the Gulf of Mexico. The wind field was quite large, meaning what we saw that would potentially be sustained tropical storm winds went all the way up to Tampa on the west coast, and about the Space Coast, Melbourne area on the east coast as you were to look north. So quite a wind field that came with the storm. And in a period of time, 24-hour period of time that it arrived and then left, we measured rainfall at our wastewater treatment plant at 11.5 inches, which is a tremendous, tremendous amount of rainfall in one period of time. Leading into that storm, we had several days of rain and then a couple days of not. That's important to recognize because it impacted our water table. We saw our water table at one point get to within 2 inches of the surface. And why that's important is because when water then falls from the sky, it has no place to go. It can't percolate back into the ground because the water table has risen as much as it did. And 2 inches really might as well be the surface. If you were to stick a shovel in 2 inches, you'd hit water. So in that period of time, we had almost a foot of rainfall fall, and all areas of the city of Fort Lauderdale were impacted. This was not an impact that happened in one certain area, although it has lingered in certain areas, and I'll talk about that here in just a second. Many of the areas in Fort Lauderdale drained quite quickly, or the systems worked as though they should. And there's some areas in the city, obviously, that are on higher ground than others. But again, no single corner of the city was without impact. We've seen some flooding in some neighborhoods, and those 13 of them that we've been working in the last couple days. And there's a couple that have had more significant flooding than others. And I'll run through that list here in a second, if you let me just pull it up so I don't miss anybody. We're currently doing work in Melrose Manors, Melrose Park, Victoria Park, River Oaks, Edgewood, Riverland Road, Sailboat Bend, Croissant Park, Tarpon River, Home Beautiful, Progresso Village, Dorsey River Bend, Middle River, Durs, Lincoln Park, and Rock Island and Oswald. Obviously, when we have these storms come through and we have this kind of quantity, the thing that we try to do is let the systems work where the systems can. And where the systems can't work, we try to mechanically remove the water. Keeping in mind that as we remove water, we're only as good as our ability to discharge it somewhere. And so, we have all these tanker trucks driving around town and filling up with water. They have to physically go somewhere and then deposit that water back into a stormwater system. We worked with Broward County to get permission to use some of their stormwater systems because frankly ours, as theirs were quite full. And so to give you some sense of the pumping operation that's going on out there right now, I want to say tonight, overnight for the 24-hour period, tonight until tomorrow morning, we'll have 18 active trucks out there. And then tomorrow morning at daybreak, that 18 goes up to 26. We hope that we have by the weekend pumped down most of these neighborhoods so that people can get back to normal. The forecast looks good, it looks dry. And so hopefully we'll be able to finish that work in the next couple days and bring some normalcy back to people being able to get into their house and start to assess damage. Obviously, this storm has created damage to some homes. We are happy to work with people to guide them through working with their flood insurance, and hopefully they had flood insurance. We'll look at seeing if other options or programs or services are available individually based upon individuals' circumstances. So reminder to those that are out, probably too late now, but I was out and about for most of the day with our police department in a vehicle that had a high wheelbase to it, and there were many people that just took a lot of risks in driving into water that was standing. And once your car stalls in water that is standing, you're pretty much stuck in place. We're having people get out of their cars and we were rescuing them from their roofs with one of our SWAT vehicles that has the highest wheelbase of anything we can put out on the street. So if you saw that driving around yesterday, it wasn't because we had a SWAT call out, it was because that was the vehicle in our inventory that could get into the most places. And that's why we sent it out. So talk a little bit about the deepest neighborhoods and some of those that are retaining water longer than others. We still have areas in Fort Lauderdale that they rely upon basic stormwater infrastructure. When I say basic, I mean a basic swale, and that does constitute a stormwater structure, but it really is intended to just capture water, hold it, and allow it to percolate down into the ground. Where we have those, you really can't deal with much more than about a foot of rain in a day, maybe up to 2. When you put or inches, sorry, an inch up to 2. When you put almost a foot there, you can see really how they can't keep up. The neighborhoods that are both of the Melroses, what we have over there are neighborhoods that we annexed in from Broward County at some point. They were probably built to function individually, and their stormwater system really consists of some drainage ditches and some catch basins that flow into a ditch, for lack of a better term, that surrounds the neighborhood. That ditch is intended to then percolate the collected stormwater back into the ground. But if you can imagine, when the ditch gets full, there's no place for the water to go. So a lot of our work was in pumping water down in that ditch so that water could flow from the neighborhood into the stormwater collection point that it would routinely run to. In a normal rain, it functions very well. But when we end up with significant rains like we had with a high water table, it's just prone to that flooding that we're seeing today. Joining us, even though she looks like she's me, I forwarded my link to Marie Pierce. I saw Marie, and if we could maybe recognize Marie for a second. She's the other Chris Lagerbloom that's on the call. There she is. If we could recognize Marie for a second, Marie runs our stormwater operations for the whole city. And she is intimately aware of how different things flow and how these different systems work. And she guides and directs our crews as they not only maintain our stormwater system on a day-to-day basis, but respond to an event like this, where we are now really trying to recapture a bunch of water and get it out of our neighborhoods. So for those of you that haven't met her, Marie Pierce, we'll have her see if she can unmute, and I'll ask her to take it away just for a second if she can. I know she was just, Marie, I talked briefly about the neighborhoods you were working in and the operational plan that you had put in place to start to bring some of this water down. But if you could just take a couple minutes, and so people can not hear me talk and hear you talk, because you are the one at ground zero dealing with it. Let's talk a little bit about what our operations are with this group. Thanks.
Sure. So I think it's, yeah, I'll put the camera here so you can hopefully see me a little bit better. Can everybody hear me? Somebody give me a thumbs up. Okay, good.
Yep.
I never know. It's you know, the Zoom world is temperamental sometimes. So as Chris was saying, we've been diligently working in these areas, specifically in the Melrose neighborhoods, for the last 3 weeks. I have never seen rain like this before. It's really been quite an event and an opportunity in some strange way to understand some of the hydrologic pressures that South Florida experiences and exactly what our tolerance levels are. So I've been doing stormwater at different levels and different capacities since 1994. And coming to the city gave me an opportunity to work into the infrastructure part of it, because I had been involved so many years in the pollution and the environmental and the regulatory part of it. And stormwater will always be guided in that world, because especially in South Florida, we discharge to waterways. So it's been a huge part of my life for a very long time. And the work that we're doing in Melrose Park is right now is just daunting. And the same thing with Melrose Manors. There is a lot of water that has accumulated. We really hit the ground running on Monday to try to really get out into, we knew what the needs were going to be in Melrose Manors and Melrose Park. And fortunately, I work with a team of individuals that were able to help me work offline and secure some of those resources. But getting out into the neighborhoods and having a better understanding of some of the other potential impacts, while we had this much water in our system, gave us an opportunity to also see maybe where some of our other challenges were going to be as we try to look into different maintenance strategies and look into different projects, stormwater projects that we would like to embark in, either on capital investments or in operational improvements. So currently the Melrose Manors neighborhood is one of those areas that Chris was speaking to that does not have active drainage. And in other words, it doesn't have a gravity system. And they're looking to design a system that will provide conveyance pipe and will provide catch basins and conveyance pipe, and then will tie into the existing infrastructure network as far as providing drainage for that neighborhood. There will probably be some improvements as we go through the remediation part of this, where the team that I currently work with will go out and will do some assessments and try to make some swale improvements, because we recognize that there's going to be a couple of years where, you know, we will probably go through the design and then the actual construction phase. So even with a fast track, I would anticipate it's probably a 2-year process. So going kind of switching gears and going over to Melrose Manors. Melrose Manors is equally, I'll use the word challenging, but it's a very complex system of drainage network. So as Chris was mentioning, it has a retention area that's in the backside of the neighborhood development, which actually conveys for the western half of the neighborhood, and then the eastern half of the neighborhood is not tied to that system at all. And I'm sorry if I'm maybe giving you too many details, but it's a combination of retention, storage, just really underground storage, and exfiltration. So there will be some opportunities as we come out of this to dig a little bit deeper and try to understand where we need to make some capacity improvements, and potentially maintenance is generally pretty good in that area. So I'm going to lean pretty heavily on the engineering section to help me better understand what we can do to improve capacity in that neighborhood. So the trucks that we're running, we should hopefully, if rainfall stays down and we've got the onslaught of tankers that are continuing to work historically, how this has transgressed is we usually start to see results and drawdown within the system on the third or the fourth day. So we did have a little bit more rain in this last event than we had previously. Plus, as Chris was mentioning, our groundwater table was already saturated. Then it might take us a little bit longer, but I'm hopeful that the resources and the strategic nature of how we're approaching drawing down the water levels from the lowest point will work with us. And I think that's probably about all I have to say about it. I don't want to bore you with any more details that you may not want to know, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have if I can answer them, and if I can't answer them, then I'll take your name and number and I'll get back to you.
So Marie, yeah, I'll ask a couple that I'm seeing in the chat box, and then I've got maybe one or two just questions. So one of the questions is, has water intrusion occurred? And I'll let you that with
in Melrose?
Anywhere in the city. We're talking anywhere in the city.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely, we've had some water intrusion in Melrose Park and Melrose Manors. I haven't heard of anywhere else. No, actually, I take that back. We do have one particular case that I am aware of in River Oaks. Unfortunately, that particular area, River Oaks and Edgewood, as you know, are low-lying areas, but they are neighborhoods that are currently slated actually to begin construction next year for their stormwater master plans. So those two neighborhoods already have construction plans and design plans permitted. But this particular neighborhood has a berm, has a wetland that has a berm, and unfortunately the county is working through a violation with the contractor at that location. So we've been trying to help them mitigate the property as much, but one night I believe the wetland that was behind them actually ran into the private properties, and I believe we had some water intrusion in River Oaks. But outside of Melrose Manors or Melrose Park, no, I honestly can't speak to anything that I'm personally aware of.
Yeah, I ran into some yesterday in Middle River Terrace. Right
Okay.
there, milk money in that area.
Okay.
As probably.
Well, I'm happy to tell you that we
down into-
pumped that down today. So there were a couple of streets that that were too high for vehicles to transport safely. So we were able to get that water removed today.
Probably some in Dorsey River Bend, Durs, probably Riverland. I would have seen some as well. So
Okay.
yeah, there was water that we saw some intrusion in over the city. Let me go back here to the chat. John asks, using Melrose as an example, are there examples of incremental taxes that are applied to the specific neighborhood to fund improvements? Or does the cost generally come from the common stormwater account that we all pay into? The answer to that is the latter of the two. The stormwater system functions citywide. And if you followed along, which I'm sure many of you have, we just modified the stormwater rate and the rate structure. And that rate structure contemplates a certain amount of debt for improvements going forward. And that's paid by everybody as a system. And then as we get the first set of projects done, we will make an assessment and continue with a second round of projects. But the answer to that is that the stormwater system is infrastructure of the city and paid for by the users, which is everybody in the city. Hopefully that answered that question. Abby says, what's the normal water table depth as opposed to the 2 inches we're experiencing now? Well, the good news is it's down from 2 inches now. It has been progressively decreasing over the last couple days. Marie, do you want to take a shot at that? I know we get sometimes.
Yep. If you give me 2 seconds here, I can pull it up. It just, for some unknown reason, it always reverts back to October. So it just, you might want to jump ahead and then I can come back in because it'll
Okay.
take me a minute to reset the date. I don't know why, but that's just what it does.
What month is River Oaks slated to begin? Do you have?
Yes. The last information that I had was from the engineering group, and they told me that it would be late spring, early summer.
Okay, late spring, early summer. And then I go to Dr. Getz, who asked, we know there's a lot of damage from flooding, but what about storm surge on top of that? In Miami, the Army Corps recommends floodgates, high flood walls, large pump stations. Do we have any similar study for Fort Lauderdale? What would be the infrastructure money lost from a direct hit by a Category 3 compared to the cost of an Army Corps project? I don't know the answer to the second part of the question. I can tell you that we too watch surge very closely. Ironically, when we get a surge event, we typically have more flooding and more water inundation further west than we do where the surge would actually occur. Obviously, there's, right there at the coast, you end up with surge. But when our city surges, we really see that water rise up the New River and into the middle of town. So I know our sustainability folks are well on top of the different types of infrastructure that can be built to keep water out. But I don't know that there's any recommendation in Broward County yet at this point that floodgates, et cetera, are desirable.
So I can answer the question on groundwater if you'd like me to.
Go ahead.
Okay. So on the 9th, we had that high groundwater table of just under 7 feet. It tapered off to the early morning hours of the 10th, tapered off to just below 6 foot. So it dropped about a little bit more than a foot. For some unknown reason, on the 10th, we did have a slight spike up about 4 or 5 inches, and it has currently been on the downward trend and is sitting comfortably just about 5 1/4, so 5.75 feet, which means we are sitting somewhere in the vicinity of a little bit more than a foot to our depth to water. So if you minus it out, you're sitting, if you dig down about a little bit more than a foot, you're going to hit water.
Okay, thank you. Question came in, can you comment if the stormwater is filtered before it's released into canals, waterways? So it's actually not released into canals and waterways, it's released into the stormwater system. And so the answer to that is no, but we're not taking any of this rainwater and driving to a river or a water body and discharging it there. That's why I made the comment early on how it's just as important to have a discharge place as it is to have the ability to pump, because if we pump water into trucks and we don't have a suitable discharge place into a stormwater system, then we've just got trucks filled with water, and that doesn't do anybody any good. Anybody have any other questions for Marie before I move on to testing sites and other stuff?
I have a question for Marie, please.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm taking the minutes, and I want to clarify, when you were talking about the two Melroses, one
Yes,
of
ma'am.
them you said you referenced the improvements would happen as there was remediation, and you expected design and construction to be 2 years. The other one you were referencing needing to make capacity improvements, leaning heavy on engineering. On both of those you said Melrose Manors, but
I'm sorry.
So
Melrose Park is the one that will take a look at the capacity to make sure that we're meeting the current needs of rainfall, because it's, the infrastructure was based on the date of installation.
Thank you very much, Marie. That was really helpful.
That I texted you was not meant for you. That was meant for Colleen. So don't be scratching your head. Text me or chat me. I can.
So Chris, back to you. Thank you so much. That was
Great.
fantastic having.
Yeah, that was great to have sort of that perspective. So hopefully now we actually go into the dry season. We go into our non-storm season. I can't promise anything about 2020 because it has not disappointed yet. One of the questions that I was asked to come with an answer to is our position with our involvement in litigation with the opioid companies. And so I typically rely upon the city attorney to brief me on matters that deal with our lawsuits. And so I asked him for an update in that last night, and I'm just going to read you what he tells me. He says the settlement was with the U.S. Department of Justice, to which we are not and cannot be involved. On the civil side, we continue with the multi-district litigation cases in Ohio, where they have been working on a global settlement. However, the biggest and primary defendant, Purdue Pharma, has filed for bankruptcy. We, along with the remaining plaintiffs, have filed our respective proof of claims in bankruptcy court, which he believes is pending in New York. And if he recalls correctly, ours was for $45 million, although he adds, although there's no way we would ever recover even close to that amount. Ultimately, we'll get some piece of the pie, whatever that is. He says, hopefully it's at least a slice and not just crumbs. So hopefully that's an update on that topic from the city attorney himself. So I want to address the testing sites and then talk a little bit about this journey we've been on since July of last year. And I promise I won't take long with it, but I think it really highlights, and Colleen led with this, highlights just how much truth there is in the statement that Fort Lauderdale is really the littlest big city in the world. And so we reopened Mills Pond Park today, testing facility. We were able to send in some pump trucks to get that pumped down. And we were able to get it open just after noon, I think about 1 o'clock. So it'll be open on its normal schedule. We had quite the standing water in Holiday Park. And when we saw some aerials of that testing site, it was quite inundated with water. We're working at pumping it down now. And Department of Health has indicated they anticipate a Thursday morning reopening at 9 o'clock. At that site will be 2 different tests. There will be the PCR test as well as the rapid test that the state is starting to move to, that Abbott test. They've moved to a no reservation required system. And while that's their preference and they certainly can do it, I guess the intent is to just get as many people through the testing system as possible. They are hoping to have people line up as early as 9 in the morning and service people through 3 o'clock when they will cut the line off. The intent of cutting the line off at 3 o'clock is so that they can make sure that they have served everybody who's been sitting there by 6 o'clock. It is probably going to generate some longer lines, and we'll just do the best we can do with that. But it is the Department of Health running the testing site, and so it's really up to them to determine how they schedule and what their preference is with respect to appointments. So that's what will be going on in that testing site. I'm asked here if I can cover the chief of police recruitment. I can. Like any good thing in 2020, our first round of interviews was supposed to happen yesterday. It did not, obviously, because of our response to the tropical storm, and we had more than half of the candidates that were set to be interviewed not available because of either commitments or other matters. So I offered tomorrow, thinking Veterans Day would be a great day to come together, and I didn't get a lot of support there. So we're looking at next week for those interviews to occur. So that'll be the next step in the process. I had hoped that I would have been able to report to you tonight that we had those yesterday and give you some sense as to what was accomplished. But yesterday we found ourselves really in storm mode. Again, I'll repeat, and I've said it several times, I'm impressed with the talent that's in the process. We'll get this first round of virtual interviews done before we decide to bring people to Fort Lauderdale, which is when we really start to spend money on the process. It may have encountered now a couple-week delay because of this delay in the interviews. But other than that, I still anticipate the process to be on track. Let's see, there's some other chats out there. Dr. Rader says the rapid ID from Abbott's not a good test. It certainly pinged me as positive, so I guess I didn't get the false negative. But Dr. Rader, do you want to comment on that test? I certainly am not qualified to, but you have an opinion, I'd be interested.
So if it is the rapid ID test from Abbott, which I presume it is, because it's a rapid test, in the hospital, we get about a 20 to 30% false negative rate. False negative means that people have disease 30% of the time, and the test will not pick it up. That means that if there is a high clinical suspicion for COVID in somebody that comes back negative, we usually follow that up with another test. Now, how are we going to materialize that in the community? That is going to be difficult because there is nobody that's going to be able to assess the person and say, oh, you had high likelihood or low likelihood and you need a follow-up test. Now, that having been said, yes, you do pick up a lot of people with COVID using that test, but a negative test does not preclude disease in up to 30% of cases.
So I guess then the advice would be to take it more frequently than just one time and think you're good to go. Is that the advice, or just do the PCR test?
More complicated than that, because there have been people, we used to do that where we would test a patient again with Abbott, and a third time with Abbott it would be negative, and then we would go to a gene expert or to a Panther, which are different technologies, and the test will come back positive in line with what would be expected. I think it has to do with the sensitivity of the number of virus particles that are needed in order to get a positive test. And that test may be less sensitive than some of the other tests. That is just based on pure clinical experience by myself and many other providers in the front line, that there is an issue with that test, and about a 20 to 30, more around 30% false negative rate. So that's something to keep in mind.
Got it. Okay, thank you. So just know those two testing sites will be available again Thursday, one at Mills Pond Park tomorrow. And always good to go and grab that test and make sure that everybody hopefully continues to stay negative. So I told Colleen I would finish tonight, and I wanted to highlight, when I think about the things we've been through as a community since July of last year, every once in a while you just need to sit back and think of the different chain of events that we've been through as a community, and what it means to be a community that represents a major urban downtown, but that has the feel sometimes of being, the small tight-knit city. And I think we enjoy the benefit of both, which is why it's probably why it's as incredible a city as it is. So just for grins, I'll take you back to July of last year, and we started our journey through 2020 in July of 2019, when some of us woke up to no water in the city. And it seems like a long time ago, but we remember getting those messages saying there's 4 hours worth of water, and turn off your sprinklers, and oh my goodness, this is what it looks like to open every interconnect we have, and how long do we stay with water. So we started with that, and then Hurricane Dorian decided to give us a little run for our money, and that was like being stalked by the turtle, where it ran right up against our coast and literally sat over the Bahamas, and then made this little wobble to the north, and all of a sudden disappeared. And it looked like we just had a couple of palm fronds to clean up. So, Dorian left us alone there for a while, and then we moved into the holiday season with with the first sewer pipe break in early December. And over the course of those next 90 to 120 days, we had 17 of them occur. Can you get that phone? We had 17 independent individual pipe breaks occur, and we worked our way through those. And in that process, we authorized the longest and largest sewer pipe repair project that I'm aware of that has ever occurred in the city of Fort Lauderdale, in a 7.5 mile stretch of new sewer main. And we were privileged to turn on the first 1.5 miles of that pipe just about a week and a half ago. And so everything else there is still on track. So we worked our way through the sewer pipe, and then this thing happened known as COVID, and we went in the middle of our high season, middle of spring break, we went and told the kids, got to go home because the beach is closed. And so we did that on March the 15th of this year. And shortly after March the 15th, there was a terrible event that occurred, and we remember it as the death of George Floyd. And in the response to that, several communities had demonstrations or protests. We had a couple on May the 31st. And on May the 31st, we had a downtown that we remember seeing across the nation with police and demonstrators. And that night finally came to an end, and we had to clean up from that and start to rebuild and rebuild it even as a community, both our city staff, our departments, and the community emotionally around that event. And then we went back to the COVID and continued to deal with a pandemic. And the pandemic then was interrupted by now another tropical storm that brought more rainwater to our city than we've ever seen. And now we're still coming out from that. So along the way, you look at where there are things to celebrate, because it sure seems as though it's just been one plague after the other. And I can tell you that the celebration in those events I found have been in our ability as a community to just do what needed to be done, to not give up on each other or the process, and to be laser focused on what it looked like to bring us back to normal. If we talk about the news of today, thankfully we're not talking about, I made this comment the other day, I said there's a lot of places I'd like to spend Christmas this year, but it's not going to be in Rio Vista. And hopefully Christina chuckled at that, because now there's the newest sewer pipe in town active in Rio Vista, and hopefully I can spend it somewhere else in the community. It's no joke that, and a couple people brought it up in the chat, I certainly found that COVID virus too, and it's always great when the Sun Sentinel will print your name in the front page of the local section, letting everybody know that. And that community is even further built in the fact that joining us on these calls is Dr. Rader every month, and literally within a matter of 8 to 10 hours, I had him on the phone, and he was actively engaged in the treatment and recovery, quick recovery, I might add, of me and my wife and son from the COVID virus. So it's amazing the connections we make as community members, and I just never want to lose the opportunity to highlight that sometimes those are the fabric, that's the thread that keeps a community together. This council of civic associations is an example of that thread that weaves itself through all of our neighborhoods. And we've always spent our time talking month to month on what's going on with the water, what's going on with the chief, what's going on with the pipes, what's going on with the COVID, what's going on with things in Fort Lauderdale, that I wanted to just take an opportunity this month to bring us back through some of the things we've been through over the last year and a half, and just remember that there's a lot of positive outcomes that we've enjoyed as a community, but it's because we've been a community through it. So with that, if anybody has any questions that I haven't answered, I'm happy to answer them. Usually Colleen cuts me off and says, okay, you've used your time, wait till next month. But I'm willing to do whatever the group wants to do.
I think just a big bravo. That was wonderful, Chris. It's hard to look back on this past year and the way you put that together and weaving it through, and the importance of community and coming together and connection, and support of the business community being revitalized as we open up, shut down. There's just so much going on. The cross-county, regional kind of interactions of partnership. You're chairing of the Equity Social Justice Committee for the City Managers Association. So yeah, it's been an amazing year, above and beyond for all. We're very grateful to you, and I think that should be just the overall chat message to both you and Dr. JJ for coming here and meeting with us on a regular basis. And I'm so grateful that you are okay and your family.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We'll do it again next month, but I'll be here to listen for a little while.
Okay. All right. So if we could just give a shout out to both Dr. JJ and Chris in the chat, let them, show them that we appreciate them. And that was really special, really special. So we are now going to pivot to, I was going to say the fun part of the meeting, but I'm sorry, it's been fun up until now. But the new feature of the council meetings, which are the neighborhood round robin 60-second elevator speeches. And we have 4 neighborhood leaders that have signed up to do the round robin this month. So this again is highlighting your neighborhood, why would we would want to come visit, why we would want to go live there, how you're doing right now actually. And I'm going to ask the folks that have signed up ahead of time to help with this, board members, to set your timer. So we're going to actually time everybody to 60 seconds. And since we only have 4 neighborhoods signed up tonight, if other neighborhoods that have not spoken and done their 60 seconds, they can do that tonight, or they can sign up to do this in the coming months. So with that, Melinda, president of Downtown Fort Lauderdale Civic Association, are you ready to go? And when you're ready, I'll just give you a countdown, and then we'll give you a 30-second reminder at 30 seconds. Let us know when you're ready.
Okay, can you hear me, Colleen?
Yes.
Okay, I am ready. I don't know if I'm totally prepared as I should be, but I'll give it a go.
It's going to be wonderful. All right, here we go. Downtown Fort Lauderdale Civic Association President Melinda Bowker.
Hello, happy to see everyone. I want to introduce my neighborhood. We're a unique neighborhood. We have a significant walkable urban core, but still feel like a village. We have the luxury of a huge residential base interspersed around a thriving business district, the new Riverwalk Linear Park, and the Tarpon River. Our residents live in high-rise condos and apartments, townhomes, and single-family homes. We actually have about 15 high-rise residential buildings at the moment, and we have more going up. We're founded in 2006. Our first president was former president of the council, Ron Centimore, who we dearly miss. Second president was Stan Eichelbaum, and I'm the third. I'm a COVID president elected February 2020. Highlights of our neighborhood: County Courthouse. Place you probably don't want to go is the jail. Great place also is Boulevard, great restaurants. We have Riverwalk Linear Park, Stranahan Park, Smoker Park, Huizinga. Membership, residents of all ages, many iguanas, many dogs, and on the horizon, Tunneltop Park, Los Olos Mobility Plan Refresh, Greenwise Supermarket. How's that?
That was great, Melinda. Thank you very much. 1 minute, 4 seconds. That was terrific. And that was jam-packed full of data. Not surprising that our treasurer would have that kind of content. That's terrific. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay, so up next we have a duo, President Steve Gannon and board member Barbie Pearson of Lauderdale Beach Homeowners Association. Let us know when you are ready to go, and we will give you a 1, 2, 3 countdown.
Ready to go now. Thanks a lot.
All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3.
You can see me. Good. Okay. I'm going to share a screen. We are, oops, can't share while they're up. Someone's sharing. Can I get a screen share? Thank you. We are a little neighborhood. Here we go. We are a small neighborhood, very northeast part of Fort Lauderdale. We are very similar to Sunrise Key. We are about 2 blocks across and 4 blocks long. We have 125 single-family homes and 85 condos in the Sea Tower condominium in the center of our neighborhood. We are on the beach. We are south of Oakland Park Boulevard, north of 23rd Street, and get this, east of A1A. Not many neighborhoods can say that.
It's always better east of A1A.
We have some things we say about that. Also, what can I say? Our streets have no sidewalks. They're very small. The neighborhood has had a quaint feel. Because our street is right at the beach, but not on the sand, the homes across on the sand, we have a lot of folks. We have a lot of folks that come through, pedestrians, skaters, cyclists, dog walkers from all around. The entire Galt up from north likes to walk down that way, and they come through our neighborhood. Dolphin Isles to our west. Birch Park Finger Streets, which are our sister, those are sister neighborhoods to us, very small like us, near the ocean. We have many, many people. We actually make friends with all the folks that walk through the neighborhood. It's a very touchy-feely, close-knit neighborhood. We know everyone by first name, sometimes by the dog names only, but everyone gets along with that. Also, I'm going to give you, here's a little shot from a drone that we took at the time, 5 years ago when we were doing beach renourishment. We were checking on the beach renourishment. So this is the center of our neighborhood. You'll see the sea tower there. Historic sea tower built in the 1960s, the centerpiece of our neighborhood, designed by Igor Pozovlevsky, and it's called a layer cake architecture. Very, very distinctive. Folks know about it. Again, you see the single-family homes on the sand. Tropic Magazine called us one time the Laguna Beach of the East. Very few homes on the sand, as you know, on the South Florida, even Southeast Florida.
Wonderful.
We have
Wonderful.
restaurants nearby at North Beach Shops at the Oakland Park Boulevard in A1A.
Wonderful. So I don't know, as a couple, whether we warranted giving you 2 minutes, right? But that was terrific. The map is a wonderful idea. We did not see the drone footage. So if you want to share that next time or email it to us, maybe we'll give you a slot next time.
Thanks a lot.
That was absolutely wonderful. Okay, I'm going to go back to the minutes and look up who's next. All right. Okay. So board member Dennis Ulmer is our regular featured speaker on 9/11, on many of our patriotic holidays. We rely on him to give a presentation, make remarks. So really looking forward to his presentation on Lauderdale Manors, and he is a board member of that homeowner association. So Dennis, when you are ready, let us know.
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go.
Lauderdale Manors is bounded on the north by the North Fork of the New River, on the south by West Sunrise Boulevard, on the east by the west side of Northwest 9th Avenue, and on the west by I-95. Lauderdale Manors Homeowners Association consists of 3 subdivisions: Lauderdale Manors, Lauderdale Villas, and Hillmont Heights. Our area is one of the largest areas in the city, primarily zoned single-family residential. We have a recreation center with pool and covered children's playground, several public green spaces, and Mills Pond Park is within our boundaries. Fire Station 46 is within our boundaries and is station number 1 to us. We have a population of approximately 8,000 and 2,200 residents. Our homeowners association was incorporated in 1970 and is one of the oldest in the city. Thank you for your interest in our neighborhood. Bricks and mortar don't make a great city. People do. People like all of us here tonight.
Bravo, Dennis. That was great. Way to end. That's awesome. Terrific. That was just wonderful. And right on the nose, I think, in terms of timing. So terrific. Last up, or at least of those that have signed up in advance, is a board member and Kelly Manning and Vice President of River Oak Civic Association. Kelly, thank you for being willing to do your neighborhood review this month. Let us know when you are ready.
I am ready.
All right, go.
Our west border is I-95, south is State Road 84, east is Southwest 9th Avenue, north is Davie Boulevard, back west to New River is flowing, southwest to I-95. Our neighborhoods to the south is Edgewood, east is Croissant Park, north to northeast is Tarpon River, and north-northwest is Shady Banks. River Oaks has 1,071 single-family homes and townhomes, approximately 700 condos and apartments, and 174 duplexes. We have quick and easy access to I-95, 595, State Road 84, the airport, Port Everglades, and downtown Fort Lauderdale. Before Fort Lauderdale became a city, Lewis Marshall's vegetable packing house sold on what was then Main Street is now New River, right in River Oaks. There have been boat yards in River Oaks for many years, including Lauderdale Marine Center, which is the largest yacht repair facility and shipyard in the United States. We have Gore Betts Park, formerly Gore Nursery, Esther Davis Wright Park, Mitchell Family Park, and River Oaks Stormwater Preserve. We believe we have the nicest tree canopy in Fort Lauderdale, which is partly why River Oaks is a marvelous place to live.
I don't know why I get such a kick out of these. That was fantastic, Kelly. Yes, somebody commented that if we ever host an auction, you're going to be our auctioneer. That was really great. Okay, is Bill Brown on the call? Okay, he texted me, so I don't believe he's here. Is there anybody else that, without advanced preparation, wants to go tonight to talk about their neighborhood? Otherwise, please, please, please sign up for next month, because next month is December. It's holiday month. It's a time to have fun and celebrate. We encourage you to get creative. John Burns, I'm thinking of you. So please consider presenting about your neighborhood next month. Is anybody willing to go tonight before we move on to our regular business? Okay, I'll take that as we're going to go off and prepare. So hats off to all the speakers tonight. Congratulations. Show you some love. That was amazing. Really, really wonderful job. Thank you. Thank you. So we are now going to close with our council business. I'll pull the agenda back up. So we have meeting minutes from last month. Any review or edits to the minutes? Otherwise, call for a motion for approval.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Second.
Terrific. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right,
Aye.
wonderful. Minutes approved. Melinda, over to you for treasurer's report.
Okay, everyone. So I can screen share, can I, Colleen?
I think you can.
Okay, yeah, I will share this. Let's see. I keep thinking I have to talk really fast, but I can calm down. Okay, share screen, and here we go. So nothing too exciting. The account balances have not changed actually in a couple months. So just to go over briefly, the SunTrust account still holding at $11,310. PayPal at about $535 with our total at $11,845. As I stated here, since the last time I spoke to this membership on October 13, we have not had any payments, nor have we had any, we haven't had any membership signups or renewals, but we also have not had any payments. And always attached, if you do go to the website, to the back of the treasurer's report is our membership payment listing. And if you do want to reference where you're at or when you paid, and I will take any comments or questions.
Terrific as always, Melinda. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are close to the end of the meeting. Just upcoming meetings. The next board meeting is November 23rd, and our general meeting is December 8th. Normally, this would be a holiday potluck. We're not going to be doing an in-person potluck this year. It will be a virtual holiday party. We will let you know what themes we come up with and what ideas. But yes, the hope is that there will be some fun engagement at our meeting to include possibly ugly sweaters and singing and who knows what else. So John showed us how to do a virtual filter for your, are you still here, John? I don't know if I see him anymore, but John was showing us. So we will let you know for creative ideas, you know, how we can celebrate the holidays together in December. In the meantime, we wish everybody a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving. Hope that we stay dry through the next several weeks till we get past the rainy season. Gratitude to our wonderful speakers, Dr. J.J. Rader, Mr. Lagerbloom, and Michael Antonelli. Thank you to all the presenters of Neighborhoods. You were outstanding and wonderful. You continue to set the bar every month. So thank you so much. And board elections for the council. If you're interested in running for the board of the council, please just fill out the contact us form on the council website, and we will have a nominating committee form shortly and start to review candidates as they come in. With that, any final comments from anybody? And we'll, after that, call for an adjournment.
I'd like to say that Mary Pelican looks smashing.
Let me take a look. I haven't seen her. Oh, there's John. Okay, so look at Mary. Okay, so Mary and John, if you can see their example, that's a really cute idea for the holidays. I can't do that on my laptop.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way.
Oh, I cannot sing.
Anybody
Come
that can sing is on tap for next month. So John and Mary and anyone else can do that virtual video filter. That's fantastic. You are off the hook for getting an ugly sweater, or maybe you have that as well. But we'll be doing something fun next month. With that, any other thoughts, questions, concerns before we call for an adjournment tonight? Okay. All right.
Silent night, stormy night.
Oh, God.
All
I
right.
move to adjourn.
Doubling up.
John will not
Somebody's
be
going to be singing. I move to adjourn.
Yeah, John's not going to be singing next month. That's all right, everybody. Thank you very much. Have a great evening. We'll see you in December, if not sooner. Take
Thank
care.
you, Colleen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.
Everyone.
Happy
Thanks,
healthy
Colleen.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.